Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build workshop. This is a free online workshop for those who want to get their California Contractors license. This informational webcast is presented by the Contractor State License Board, the California government agency responsible for regulating the state's construction industry. I am Rick Lopes, joined this morning by Anna Rodriguez. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning, Rick.
Please note that because of the COVID-19 health emergency, all CSLB test centers are temporarily closed. We will remain open, we hope to reopen them shortly. We do continue to process applications, so there's no reason for you to wait to submit your license application. You can download this presentation to follow along, or just you can watch it now and download it later. You'll be able to get clickable bonus links that appear on the slides throughout the presentation. There's a banner at the top of our homepage with a link to the presentation. If you have any problems downloading, be sure to drop us an email. Our address is social@cslb.ca.gov. We'd be happy to send you out a copy of the presentation.
Over the next hour or so, we are going to be throwing a lot of information at you, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We will archive the video of this workshop and put it on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it again. To ask a question, use the Q&A feature. You should see the blue circle with a question mark at the bottom of your screen when you mouse over it. Click on the circle and it should open a Q&A window where you can type in your questions. Make sure when you type in your questions, you send your questions to all panelists. Please keep your questions general in nature if you can, so the answers will benefit as many people as possible. We will answer questions at the end of our presentation.
The information obtained during this webcast is not, or is it intended to be, legal advice. While this webcast does contain general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it's definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. If you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law, or review the 2020 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free on the CSLB website or purchase it directly from the publisher, LexisNexis, and you see those links at the bottom of the page.
Here is a list of what we are going to cover today. We'll take you through the process for applying for your California Contractor's license. First, who needs a license? Why get a license? The minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license, the type of business entities, the different CSLB license classification. We will also give you tips to help you fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. We're also going to be discussing fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check. We will help you get ready for your exam or exams you'll need to pass in order to get your license. And finally, the other things you'll need to have in place before your license is issued. For example, your bonding, your insurance.
Okay, so let's get started. First, who needs a license? Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That includes both labor and materials. And the law doesn't let you break down the project into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours for the job totals $500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what's the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Profession Code. In this case, it's section 7026.1. There's a link to that code at the top of the page. Actually, there's not one there. We'll put a code on there, but you'll be able to. You can also look it up. Business 7026.1. So I'll read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part that we've underlined. A contractor is any person, consultant to an owner, building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation, or company who or which undertakes, offers to undertake, purports to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. So in other words, you don't have to do the work to break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do construction work, or even to give a bid for a construction job if the bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself why you should get a license. Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows you've taken the steps to get licensed and that you are serious about your career choice. Also, it allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanic lien laws. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with the fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face the first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and/or a $5,000 fine and potential administrative fines anywhere between $200 to $15,000. Subsequent violations can result in increased criminal penalties and fines. In addition, you may face felony charges if you contract without a license when one is required in a state or federally declared disaster area, or if you try to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a license preparation school to get your contractor's license.
Here's a short list of the minimum qualifications that you do need to have in order to get your license. First, you must be at least 18 years old. Second, you must have either a valid Social Security number or a valid individual taxpayer identification number, or ITIN. Every licensee must have a qualifier. That's someone who's met the minimum experience and is responsible for the operations of the company. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or a contractor in the trade that's being applied for. The other way is you can have a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. And we'll spend a lot of time talking about how you can demonstrate your experience on your application in a few minutes. In some cases, a college education, a bachelor's or associate's degree, may count towards meeting some of the experience requirements. Also, completing an apprenticeship program may count towards meeting some of the experience requirements. Some of your military service may count as well. As you see towards the bottom of the page, there's a bonus link for our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program. You can learn more. The license qualifier must also pass 2 different exams, both taken on computer at one of CSLB's 8 test centers around California. One exam is on California business law. The other exam is in the specific trade covered by the license. Now, we also do have some limited specialty licenses, which we'll discuss later. For those licenses, the qualifier only needs to take and pass the law and business exam.
As we mentioned, the qualifier must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We're not going to spend a lot of time on the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver from taking one or both of the exams in very specific situations. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a link at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more into depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in a position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operation. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you are trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as the project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you're going to need to do is to determine before you apply for your license which type of entity your business is going to be. There's 4 types. The first is the sole ownership, where the owner or the responsible managing employee may serve as the license qualifier. About 64% of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownerships. Second is a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. Just under a third, 32% of our licensees are corporations. A distant third is partnerships, where either of the general partners or responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. About 2% of our licensees are partnerships. Finally, limited liability companies or LLCs, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, Responsible managing officer or responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. About 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filing your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under 3 different categories. There is a bonus link to our classifications list at the bottom of the screen. First is Class A, or General Engineering Contractors. These are contractors who deal with fixed works that require special engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones that build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are just over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is our Class B, or General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires, as part of its construction, at least 2 unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contractor for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry unless the prime contract requires at least 2 unrelated building trades other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final class is our C, or Specialty Contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skill and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades or crafts. Examples of this class include our C10 electrical contractors, our C20 HVAC contractors, C27 landscaping contractors, C33 plumbing contractors, C39 roofing contractors, C46 solar contractors, and our C53 swimming pool contractors, just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61 D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold the C license.
Okay, next, here's just a very quick look at the 2 forms you're going to need. On the left is the license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms from the CSLB website. You see a number of links there at the bottom of your screen, and we'll give you a closer look at the different sections of those forms a little later in the workshop. Okay, now let's go ahead and break down the steps of the application process. First, you need to identify who's going to be the qualifier for your license. If you're using an RME, or responsible managing employee, as a qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for an exam waiver. Next, make sure that you complete the correct application. There are 2 options here: the application for the original contractor's license or the application for an original contractor's license with an examination waiver, only to be used if you're going to be able to waive the exams. The next step is to determine your company name. Take a look at our application for some examples. Here's some things to keep in mind. Your name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than the license that you're trying to get. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you can't have the name John Smith Plumbing, Construction, Heating, and Drywall. You just can focus on just the plumbing, so John Smith Plumbing would be fine. Now, corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name registered with the California Secretary of State's office. So if you're applying your entity as a corporate or an LLC, make sure your name exactly matches what you've got on file with the Secretary of State's office. Also, the name of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application.
Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military services may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualification. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. There's a link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but very important. You want to proofread for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date your application before mailing it in. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your exam? If so, complete a request form and submit it with your application. We'll talk about the use of a translator a little bit later.
Okay, next, closer look at the fingerprint requirements that you'll have to meet, and that's used for our criminal background check. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, and all home improvement salespersons. If you're in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called LiveScan. With the COVID-19 health emergency, many LiveScan locations are temporarily closed. Fortunately, there are many sites that are still open and more opening every day. The Attorney General's office is doing a great job keeping an updated list broken down by county. We have a link here, or you can simply go to the Attorney General's website and search for LiveScan. You'll see that we have a link at the bottom of the screen for the fingerprint information on our CSLB website. Now, if you're out of state, it's quite honestly going to be a little bit tougher for you to get us your fingerprints. That's because the law requires you to submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way, not electronically. Those will take anywhere from 3 to 6 months for the FBI and the Department of Justice to process. So when things settle down with the COVID-19 health emergency, you may want to consider, if you're out of state, taking a trip and coming out to California and to get an electronic live scan done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also considers. They are the nature and the severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and also any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates criminal convictions within 7 years of the application date, unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. Question number 11 on the application asks if you have ever been convicted of a misdemeanor or a felony. If you have, make sure you check the yes box, and you want to submit a disclosure statement that can be found in the form section on CSLB's website. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications we get based on criminal convictions.
Okay, our next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for our applicants. So you'll definitely want to sit up for this. It's how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years of experience within the last 10 years in the classification for which you're applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since the year 2010. The experience must be at no less than a journeyman level, or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or an owner builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified, as opposed to a trainee who can perform trade without supervision, or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There's a limited amount of space on the work experience certificate to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach them at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience form as you need in order to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. You want to use a different form for each certifier. Make sure to be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person certifying your work describes the actual work you performed and the dates in which you performed them. We will now be providing some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate your work experience. We do not want you to copy and paste this information directly into your application. These are simply examples for you to use.
Okay, at the top of the chart, this is the way it's going to look. First is the classification and the type of experience you're trying to demonstrate. This first example is for a journey person's experience. Now, the overall theme we want to keep repeating is the more specific your description, the better. And note, the work experience form should be completed by the certifier. That's someone who has knowledge and who observed your work experience for the classification that you are applying for.
So our first example here is an example of the Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for a journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work. Something like this. Bob performed rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, roof out plumbing and electrical, interior and exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something generic like this: residential general building trades. For four-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and/or supervisory work. Here's an example of the best type of description. Bob oversaw staff at job site performing rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough-out plumbing and electrical, interior-exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, an unacceptable description would be something generic like residential general building trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at a supervisor level. An example is, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finish carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough-out plumbing and electrical, interior-exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, unacceptable would be something like residential general building trades. So as you can see, the point is we want you to be very detailed. For out-of-state contract experience, the description must include examples of work that you performed either out of state, on military projects, projects on federal lands, or work performed for a government entity. Applicants can qualify if they performed work as a journey person, a foreperson, or a supervising employee. A tip: be specific about your duties and employment circumstance. Our next example here is a C27 landscaping contractor. First, for the experience at a journeyman level. The best type of description your certifier could use would be: Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be something like gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a foreperson would be something like: Jane oversaw other staff at job site performing landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable description, again, would be something like gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. The best description would be: as a construction lead on multiple projects, applicant supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathway and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervising employee would also be something like gardening, yard maintenance, planning. Finally, for our out-of-state contractors, you can follow the same guidance that we showed you for general building contractors. You want to be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as work for the military or on federal lands or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and employment circumstances. By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all the information provided on at least 3% of our applications. Our next 3 slides run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application was selected and you were asked to provide additional documentation. The supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You will only need to provide this information if requested by CSLB staff. We have included a link on this slide to this publication available on our website, along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at this chart, you can see that in the first column, it's for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The middle column is for documenting your experience if you have been self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you're applying for a Class B general building contractor license and need to use your own owner-builder experience to meet the experience requirements. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, you can click on the link to view and print this publication. Here's the final page of acceptable documentation. If you do not have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you are asked to provide it in the future. Remember, you're trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. CSLB may contact the certifier or experience of other parties to verify your experience.
And again, just so we're clear on that, that's 3% of our license applicants that we do have to go back and do this certification. So that's when that process will come into play. One other note that CSLB does get more than 1,000 applications every month. So our application processing staff has seen it all. Their advice for you is to, don't try to get around a trade test by simply applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that's the content you'll need to fill out your application. Before getting it to CSLB, make sure that you didn't miss anything. Be sure to sign it and date it. You would be surprised in how many people forget to do that. And we'd hate to have to send it back to you and have you start the whole process again. Also, don't forget to include the all-important application fee. The amount is there on the application itself. Then get it and mail it to CSLB.
Okay, so now that we have gone through the information you'll need to include in your application, here's a closer look at the different sections in your application so you can see where it goes. This is section 1 is where you're going to list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, make sure that the name that you have selected is compatible with the classifications and the entity that you are applying for. And we don't want it to be misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you will need to make sure that the name you provide in this section matches exactly the business name registered with the Secretary of State. In line 2 is where you will indicate what classifications you are applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list here on line 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. In section 2, you will select your business entity. If you're applying for a corporation or an LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. In section 3, you will list the qualifier's information. Remember, the qualifier is a person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of construction operations. The qualifier will be the person taking the exams. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of the new business owner owned by the qualifier. For example, if you are the only person that will be listed on the license, you would enter 100%. On line 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on the entity you have selected. You can find more information about this on page 4 of the application instructions. Line number 8 is where you will sign and date your application. Section 4 is where you will list the personnel information for all remaining personnel that will be listed on the license. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLC, you will want to make sure that all personnel that are listed with the Secretary of State must be listed in this section. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application in section 4. Section 5 is a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to cover those here. Section 6 here on the screen is where you may be granted credit towards the 4 years experience requirement based on your education. Question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certificate of completion. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. This credit is not on a year-to-year basis, meaning if you have a 2-year college degree, you won't necessarily be granted 2 years of credit toward the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in any other language other than English, it must be translated. Now we will discuss the certification of work experience. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you will list the information for your employer where you gained your work experience. If you were self-employed when you gained the experience, please make sure to check the box in line number 2. if you are applying for a B general construction license and will be using experience obtained while working on your own property, make sure to mark the box in line number 4. Part 2 will be filled out by the certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you were working on a part-time or a full-time basis. Keep in mind, if you are working part-time, you will only receive 50% of the credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years in order to meet that 4-year requirement. On line number 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of the critical duties in CSLB's Description of Classification booklet, available on our website. You do not want to copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers critical duties for each classification. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words, and we want them to be as complete and accurate as possible. If you have more than one certifier, or if you worked for more than one contractor, you will need to print out additional certification of work experience pages. And remember, applicants can qualify if they performed work as a journey person, a foreperson, or a supervising employee. We understand that there are many other individuals who can qualify for a license under different circumstances. If we did not cover your specific situation on the previous slides, please feel free to email us and we will address your specific situation. If you have been working in the industry for 4 years within the last 10 years and you feel like your experience meets the requirements but aren't sure how to demonstrate that here in this section, feel free to send us an email so that we can further discuss your specific situation. The final part, this part here that's on the screen, the final part of your work experience certificate is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationships to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date their certification. Now let's go over the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience. This next form is only needed to be completed if you are applying for a B General Construction license and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects for your own property. A separate form is required for each project on the property. The experience must be verifiable through building permits, final inspections, or other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number on line 6. On line number 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. In boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the projects. Question number 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project and what trades they performed. Remember, this information should be as complete and accurate as possible.
Okay, there you go. You've got your application submitted now. So how can you check the status of that application? Here are 2 resources for you. First, it's a secure check. You need your application fee number and your contractor PIN number to get an update. We'll send you that information after we receive and accept and post your completed application. The second way is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So you want to look for what's called the date being worked on, and that you know if that date shown is after the date that we likely received your paperwork, then it's more than likely we're already working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB receives hundreds, if not thousands, of documents every day, and we process them in the order that they're received. So be sure to take the extra time to get the application right so we don't have to send it back to you, have it corrected, and have to start the whole process again. Now, when the application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice for examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks before your exam date. You should note that we're planning to add additional test sessions in the early evenings, and later we may hold them on Saturdays when our test centers reopen after the COVID-19 health emergency. That'll help us catch up with the 2 months that our test centers have been closed. We do have 8 test centers around California, and we would encourage you to take the exam at the center that's closest to you. Those centers in alphabetical order are in Berkeley, Fresno, Norwalk, Oxnard, Sacramento, San Bernardino, San Diego, and San Jose. If you're an applicant whose first language isn't English, you don't feel confident taking your exam in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads you the exam questions. Question number 16 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete the examination. Now, the translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You can't just show up on the day of your exam at the test center with somebody to translate the exam. Also, we have study guides available for each of our exams, and they're included in each study guide. You'll find a list of the sections and topics that are covered by the exam. They'll also include some sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and the recommended resources you can use to prepare for the examination. The study guides are available online on our website. You do see a link at the bottom of your page there. Now, when our test centers are back up and running, you will get an exam date, so make sure you don't miss that exam date. If you fail to appear, you're going to have to pay a non-refundable $60 fee and reschedule. And again, there is a backlog because of the test centers being closed, so it may take a while for you to get back in line. So make sure you got everything set and you don't miss your test date. The fee will be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or a circumstance that was beyond your control.
Okay, here's how the test process will work. At our test center, you'll take the exam on a touch-screen computer. Before starting, you'll see an on-screen tutorial that will take you through the process. The exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You'll also see a space on each question where you can, if you want, submit a comment about the question. You'll get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or that may reduce the amount of time you get to complete your exam. You'll get your results at the end of the examination. If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the examination. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within the 18-month period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee each time.
Okay, so after you pass your exam, what happens next? First, you will need to pay a $200 fee for your initial license fee, and that'll be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor surety bond and possibly some other bonds depending on the type of business entity that you have. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you're going to have employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. See our website for the amounts. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit the insurance information to CSLB directly on our website. And if you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB, and you can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office or chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations where you're going to solicit business, talk to potential customers, or sign contracts. We encourage consumers to ask you to see your pocket license. If you're going to have salespeople working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, if your license was issued today, it will expire on May 31st, 2022. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar or in your phone, anywhere that you need to, so that you don't forget it. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Okay, here are a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind as you move forward. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we've got on file. If you're not there anymore, you're probably not going to get your renewal notice. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, be sure to notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier of the license. Okay, that is it. That is our presentation. We do now have time to answer your questions. So what we're going to do, if you haven't asked a question yet and you'd like to, feel free to pull up the Q&A option at the bottom of the screen if you haven't opened it up. What we're going to do here is we're just going to take things in order and try to go through them as quickly as we can. The first is from Craig. It says, I believe I have ample experience to qualify for a license, but they don't clearly fit the criteria listed. How do I get a confirmation that my experience qualifies before going through the process?
Unfortunately, there's not anyone available to review your experience before submitting your application. So you will want to submit your application, verify that you have at least 48 months worth of experience on that work certificate before you mail it in. And that's what we're looking for, 48 months within the last 10 years.
Okay, next question from Peter. Can I apply for a license with my green card? I'm a permanent resident, but not a U.S. citizen.
Absolutely. We don't require that you have a green card or be a U.S. citizen. We will accept as long as you have a valid social security number or an I-10, you can go ahead and apply for a contractor's license.
Okay, Gonzalo, the next one. Are all those contractor license schools a viable option versus getting books myself and preparing for the examinations? Also, do you have any recommendations on how to prepare for the exam? As far as the licensing schools, you'll have to make that decision if it's a viable option to you. It's, as we mentioned in the presentation, it is not a requirement. I would encourage you to take a look at the 2020 edition of our Contractors License Law and Resource Guide. You can download it for free on our website, and we have links inside the presentation right there near the beginning. You can also purchase it if you'd like to. I think it runs about $35 or $40 if you want to actually have a hard copy of that. We do give you a sample test. It does have a few of the questions and the topics are covered there as well. If you feel you need more than that, then absolutely it is an option for you to use, but it's not required. Anna, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think that's
okay. The only time you're ever going to hear Anna say that to me. Okay, next one is, I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong, is it Farhood? I want to know about the law exam. We need to study California Contractors License Law and Reference Book website. Okay, yeah, so that's a great resource for you. So please download it for free on our website, the Contractors License Law and Reference Guide. The first 150 pages especially, it talks about a lot of the business things that you're going to need to know. Okay, Mike's got our next one regarding each owner. How does this apply to investors and shareholders?
So anyone who is listed on your license with the Secretary of State, you're going to want to first register your corporation or your LLC with the Secretary of State, and whoever you have listed there, you're going to want to go ahead and include on your application.
Okay, next question is from Jason. Does a sole owner for an LLC have to show proof of experience for a C-class license? Well, first of all, the sole owner and LLC are two different entities. You'll need to pick one or the other. If you're sole owner and you're qualifying the license, then yes, you've got to demonstrate that experience to us. If you've got a qualifier, you would be using that qualifiers. And then on the LLCs, you're going to have somebody qualify that license as well, and they'll be the one needing to have the experience to qualify. Okay, Farhood has another question too. Is this book include business, or do you have a different book? Everything's included in the book. The license law book is all inclusive. I'm sorry, good. And I'll let you handle this one. Mm-hmm. I'll let you pronounce it. Is it Rogelio? Sorry.
Rogelio. Rogelio Lopez. Rogelio asks, if I'm applying for a partnership and my partner already has a contractor's license, what would the next step be? Would I still need to take the exam since I don't have one? If you are applying for a partnership and your partner already has a contractor's license, both you and your partner will be listed on the new application for your partnership. Only one person needs to take the examination. So if he already has a license and you are applying for a license in the same classification, you would let us know who the qualifier is. If he is your qualifier, then he would not need to take the examination because he's a licensed contractor. If you wanted to be the qualifier, you would list that on the application, and then yes, you would take the examination. But like I mentioned, only one person needs to take the exam.
Okay, next question from Jennifer. Who would qualify as a certifier for an owner builder? You can just kind of go over that again, Anna.
Sure. So a certifier, everybody has to have a certifier, somebody who can verify that you have minimum 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. If you want to gain experience as an owner builder, you're applying for a B general contractor license, and you want experience for your own project, then you would fill out that one form that we went over, and you want to make sure you include all the pertinent information. It has to be verifiable by the permits, final inspections. As long as you include all that information and we are able to verify the information, we can use that information to go towards the 4 years of experience requirement.
Okay, next we have a couple questions from Lisa. First, is there a list of recommended schools or education programs available for training and to contribute to experience? No, the CSLB can't make any recommendations of schools, so there are plenty of them out there online. I'm sure a quick Google search will find something close to you. Second question, I'm looking to become a certified interior designer that can hire my own subcontractors. Is the contractor's license necessary, and would my interior design education contribute to experience for license?
So if you are looking to be a general contractor on a project and you're going to be hiring subcontractors, you do have to have a license issued by CSLB. So yes, you would have to do that. You would have to prove the 4 years of experience, and you'll have to have somebody certify that experience. Just as we mentioned on the certification of work experience, have somebody fill out you fill out part 1, they'll fill out part 2, and you can send that in. But yes, a license would be required.
Okay, from Veronica, what should I do if part of the experience I have was outside the US? What proof do I need? You covered that, but her question came in before you covered it. So if you can please just go over just that part again, your experiences outside the US.
Sure. So we do give work experience for experience that was acquired outside of the state or outside of the country. What we need is for somebody who has knowledge that you have journeyman level experience, at least 4 years within the last 10 years, to fill out that certificate. So again, you fill out part 1, they fill out part 2. As long as we are able to verify that you do have the experience, we would be able to use that towards your 4-year, to credit towards the 4 years.
Okay, next question is from Dennis. I have an existing LLC registered in New York. Should I transfer the registration to California before starting the application process?
So when you fill out your application, you are going to have to first register your LLC or your corporation with the Secretary of State, because we will need that information on your application. So yes, you will go to the Secretary of State, register your LLC, and then provide that number to us.
Okay, got a couple of questions here from Sarah. First is, how can multiple personnel be on a license if they're not licensed? What does it mean when multiple persons can be on a license?
So if you, let's say you have an LLC, there's different people on your license, you can absolutely have multiple people on your license. Only one person is required to take the examinations. Only one person is required to prove the work experience. That person is known as your qualifier. When we covered the different sections of the application, we mentioned where you're going to let us know who the qualifier will be. So once you indicate that person, that we will verify work experience just on that one person, and that one person will be required to pass the examinations. All other people that you want listed on the license should be listed in section 4.
Okay, Sarah's next question is, does having a BA in architecture at UC Berkeley qualify me for using my education as experience? First of all, congratulations. That can't be an easy degree to get. Okay, so Anna, education, can an architecture degree work towards that?
So what we would require is that you send in your sealed transcripts with your application, and then once it lands on a technician's desk, they will look at your transcripts and let you know how much credit they can give you for your education.
Okay, next question is from Solar. Excuse me if I mispronounced that. Should I register my company before applying for a contractor's license? If not, what will happen if the company name rejected to register after having a certificate? Can I change the name later?
When you apply for your contractor's license, you do not have to provide a company name. If you're not ready to come up with a company name at that time, we would just issue the license to your name, to your personal name. You can always add a company name later. You can add a doing business as later. That's not a problem. If you want, CSLB doesn't monitor company names. You don't have to register it previous with us or register it with your county or your city. That's not a requirement for CSLB.
Okay, next question from Sarah. What if some of my experience for a project was supervising all trades that we licensed on their own, and I acted as a construction manager? Can I self-certify that experience?
So you can't self-certify the experience, but that experience definitely does count. We would need someone to verify that experience. And it doesn't have to be a licensed contractor necessarily. There are different categories in that section when we covered it. It could be a fellow coworker. It could be different categories. You'll want to look at that section on the work certificate experience form and make sure that somebody is able to verify your work experience. We're looking for 4 years within the last 10.
Yeah, you actually anticipated the next question. This one from Dan is, does the qualified certifier need to have a California contractor's license?
So it doesn't have to actually be a licensed contractor. Of course, it's helpful if it is, but it can be somebody, if you're part of a union, it can be somebody from the union. It can be a business associate. It can be, there are different categories listed on the certificate itself you'll want to take a look at.
Yeah, thanks. Victoria had a very similar question, so we'll skip over that one. Next question is from Carlos, asking about our test centers, when we expect them to reopen. We are shooting right now for mid-June. We were hoping to be able to open them up next week, but we've quite honestly had some problems getting enough PPE for our staff, more than just a few weeks worth. We don't want to open up and then have a problem with it. So right now we're looking, hopefully at June 15th, we will definitely announce it on our website, and our testing division is really good about setting up these exams. So you'll definitely would hear from them. But right now we're hoping for the middle of June. Okay, next question from Jason is, what is the passing percentage for the exams?
Each exam has a different passing percentage. That would be information you would get once you have signed up for your test, but each one has a different passing percentage.
Okay, Brandon asks, the application instructions tell us not to leave any fields blank. What do we do with all of the fields in section 4 if we don't have any personnel?
Oh, you can just write NA over them, letting us know you're not going to have any personnel.
Okay, so just fill it out. But just NA is great. Okay, Jason asks, are the bond fees returned should you cease business?
So that's something you would have to discuss with the bond company. You make your payment directly to the bond company.
Yeah, and that is one thing you can find on the website, is you can find, I believe we do have the list of bond companies available on the website. Brandon's question, section 5, question 15 states that it must only be filed if the qualifying individual is an RME. If I am a sole owner with no employees, am I considered the RME?
No, an RME is a employee, a responsible managing employee. So if you are a sole owner, no, that does not apply to you.
Yeah, so sole owner, you are the qualifier, you are the only person. RME is only if you have employees. Chang, thanks for the presentation. Sorry, no question there. Well, thanks, Chang. Seth, does the RMO take the test, or does the main business owner take the test?
The qualifier takes the examination, so you would list that person in the appropriate section. Let us know, like we mentioned, the qualifier is the person with the experience. That person takes the examination.
Okay, next question from Jordan. Can you get issued a license if you owe back taxes to the IRS?
I would encourage you to submit it. Submit an application, and then I don't know that that's something that would prevent you from getting a contractor's license.
Okay, next question has to do with out of state and live scans. Live scans only in California because I'm in Texas. Yeah, as I understand it, the law says that if you're out of state, you have to submit the old-fashioned fingerprints on paper on cards. So, and that takes the Department of Justice and the FBI longer to process. So, unfortunately, unfortunately, it's a great time to come to California. Except for the COVID thing, but when things get better, yeah, you could either start the process now and kind of wait for it, or try to find some time down the road where you'd be able to come to California and do it. It'll be much faster if you're able to. Christopher asks, is it possible to incorporate our landscape business in Delaware under a standard LLC and to work as a licensed contractor in the state of California?
You would have to register your LLC with the Secretary of State here in California.
Okay, Ron asks, is there any materials that you would recommend that we can study for the exam? We've gone over that a couple times. The law book is the best thing we can recommend. There are there's schools and there's plenty of other information out there. But the best thing we would recommend is our licensed law book. Dennis, when does it make sense to get a Class B license instead of a bunch of trade certifications? Or in this case, I believe he's asking about the specialty licenses.
Mm-hmm. we would encourage you to apply for the B license if that is something that you have the experience for. You'll want to read our description of classifications booklet. There it lists what type of work you can do with each license. So if you have the experience for a B license, which is general construction, and that's something that you are able to prove through the work experience certificate, that might be the best route for you. But if you read the descriptions for the trade certificates, the C specialty licenses, and that's something you want to add on in the future, you can absolutely do that. One license can have many different classifications. You have to select one to begin the process, but let's say you start with your B and then you notice that you're getting a lot of, let's say, painting requests, just for painting, nothing else. We talked about 2 unrelated trades, but let's say you're only getting requests for painting work, and so you wanted to add that classification to your license. You can always do that in the future. As long as you can prove the 4 years within the last 10 years, you can add as many classifications to your license as you like.
Next question is from Emily. Where can I download the presentation? Emily, the best thing to do is go to our homepage, cslb.ca.gov. Right there at the top of the page, there was a banner advertising this workshop. There's a link there that says download presentation. I would encourage you not to wait too long. Our IT team, once this is over with, they tend to try to move quickly, and since the presentation is no longer there, to get rid of it. So I would say if you can, even while we're talking, go to our website, download it. If you have any problems, drop us an email at social@cslb.ca.gov, social@cslb.ca.gov. We'd be happy to email it to you. But the fastest thing is go to our homepage, look up there at the top of the page. Dan asks, what is the typical lead time, non-COVID-19, for an examination date? Well, there's a lot of different things that come into play there on how fast people get their things to us. Non-COVID, and jump in if you've got a better idea, but usually it's within just a few weeks.
Sure. And you can actually go on our website. We have our current processing times. You can see what date of applications we're working on. It goes by receive date. That kind of gives you an idea of how long it will take. Once we receive your application, it posts and we send you a letter letting you know we've received your application. It's about 2 to 3 weeks out from that date.
And obviously, as we mentioned earlier, because of the COVID and we haven't been able to test for 2 months,
Right.
We are backed up on those tests. And since a lot of people have to take the 2 different exams, and the other thing is you're assuming people are going to be able to pass it. So I would encourage you during this downtime, do everything you can to study and do it. It would be awful that you'd spend all that time studying, take the test, and don't pass it. You got to get in line again. So there's lots of variables. So we'd encourage you, be as prepared as you can for the test. Okay, Seth is the next question. How many companies can the qualifier work for? For example, if a person has a license and operates a business, can they also be an RMO for another business?
Yes, they can. A person can qualify multiple licenses.
Okay, next question from Justin, again about the test centers reopening. Will they reopen all at once, according to the county? Our hope right now is that everything will open at once. If we find that as we get closer to the 15th, if there's some counties where they're still not opening up, we may have to hold off. But our plan is to open up in the test centers and actually even our public counters at the same time. Victoria, do I have to apply for general contractor's license A plus a specialty license? Go ahead.
Okay, so we did talk about how if you are going to apply for a B general contractor license, the caveat to that is that you want to have 2 unrelated trades on every contract. And so if you find yourself being solicited for work in a specialty license, then you may, if you have the experience for it, you may want to add that classification to your license. So just remember, the B general construction license is you can do all types of work, but you have to have 2 unrelated trades on every contract that you take.
Tracy asks, and says he or she has been a handyman for the last 5 years. Would I need a work experience form filled out from all of my clients, or just the ones that the work done fits one of the license categories?
So one person needs to fill out your work experience certificate. That person the certifier is a person who has knowledge that you have journeyman level experience, at least 4 years within the last 10 years. It's not necessary that they all be your clients or that it be more than one. If you have one person that can certify that for you, then they can fill out your certification. If you find that you have one person who can certify you for 2 years, then you'll have to find another certifier who can certify the other 2 years, let's say. Combine that, and as long as you have 48 months within the last 10 years, you'll be good. Just remember, you're going to want to go over our presentation and be very specific. You want them to be very specific as what duties exactly were you performing within the last, let's say, the last 10 years. What is it exactly? What type of work were you doing? So you want to look at the examples and have them be very specific.
Great. It's the top of the hour, but we're going to keep going on. We've got, wow, we've answered a bunch already, but we've got right now 145 questions in. So we are going to stay here and try to help out and answers all of them if we can. We understand if you need to go, we understand, but we are going to stay here and continue on. Next question is from Chuck. What if most all work experience is from out of state? And people who can verify the work experience. We kind of talked about this a little bit. You can have out-of-state experience, but you just need to have things that we can go back and document if we need to. Chris asks, can self-employment as a handyman be used for experience? If so, how do you certify it? We did talk about that with things like receipts, building permits, things like that. Marcus asks, can you explain what type of bachelor's degree qualifies or helps qualify for a General B license?
What you will need to do is you'll need to send in a copy of your transcript with your application, and then we are looking for construction-related courses. Once they hit a technician's desk, the technician will let you know how much credit you will get for your bachelor's degree. So, like we mentioned, it's not on a year-to-year basis. The maximum you can receive is 3 years worth of credit. So 1 year will have to be of hands-on work, but you can get up to 3 years worth of credit for your education.
Next is how many times can I take the exam? You've got 18 months. You can take it as many times as you need to. Hopefully, it won't be a lot of times. You do have to pay the $60 testing fee each time. So, and then you have to get in line again, which kind of leads to Anthony's question, how long do I have to wait to retake the test if I don't pass?
So if you don't pass, you can go ahead and pay the $60 rescheduling fee, and we will send you out a notice to appear for your next test date. I imagine now, since we have been closed for a while, there's going to be quite a gap between the next time you can take your examination, but you have 18 months to pass your exams, and you can take it as many times as you need to within that 18-month period.
Okay, we're getting a little repetitive with some of the questions about test centers reopening. David's question, Francisco, work about being self-employed. I see Juan, can a contractor's license be transferred from a sole proprietor to a newly formed LLC?
You would have to submit an application for your LLC. Some licenses can be transferred. The number can, but let's say, for example, in a partnership, if you wanted to first apply as a partnership and then dissolve the partnership, that license number dies with that when you dissolve that partnership. So you'll want to make sure that the entity that you're going for, make sure it's the correct entity, because that will affect you being able to transfer your license number. But yes, you can always apply for different entities. That's kind of cool.
Okay. And actually, I want to say too that that's very common for contractors to do. They may start out as sole ownership and then eventually change to a corporation. That's a very common thing to have happen. Okay, Vanessa asks, do I have to get a general contractor's license if I want a specialty license, example, roofing? No, you can. You can get either an A class, which is the engineering, a B, general contractor, or any of the different C classifications or subclasses. If you want to get just a roofing license, you do not have to get the general contractor's license. We have a trade exam just for roofing, so you do not have to get both. Carmen asks, I've submitted my application. I got corrections and then I sent them back. I checked the site, but no update other than the corrections that I have sent in. I haven't gotten any letters or notices. There's for that, I would recommend, actually, I'm going to jump up a slide here and you'll see, so you can write it down here. For licensing and license application questions, you can see an email address on your screen there, the licensing@cslb.ca.gov. Carmen, I would suggest send an email to that, get the information on there, and submit that to us. And our licensing folks are, as you can imagine, a lot of us are teleworking, so email is the best way to communicate. So I would say go ahead and send an email through them. Okay, Victoria, how do I know if I'm a limited specialty, and how do I prove that that applies to me?
So limited specialty licenses are exactly that. They're very limited. You'll want to read our classification booklet. In that booklet, you'll be able to read what type of work you can do with those limited specialty licenses. It's very limited. For example, tree trimming is an option. And so if you're only going to be tree trimming, then yes, you would apply for a limited specialty. There's a list in that the classification booklet that will let you know what licenses qualify for the limited specialty. And as long as you have the experience to prove it, somebody is willing to certify your work experience, then you would be able to apply for one of those licenses.
Okay, Chang asked about the owner builder's experience verification. If you wouldn't mind just going over it again, in addition to building permits, what other documents may qualify to help that experience?
So it does have to be verified by building permits, final inspections. That's what we're looking for. So you're going to want to fill out that form. There is a form along with your application. Be as thorough as possible filling out that form, and but we do need the building permit number.
Okay, Fernando asks, can I get a proof of work experience for a real estate investor?
From a real estate investor, maybe?
Yeah, and sorry, Fernando, not clear on if that investor is the certifier, if you're looking to certify that you did work for them. Let's go with that premise.
Yeah. Okay. So can a real estate investor prove your work experience? I believe is what he's asking. We're looking for somebody who has the knowledge that you have journeyman level experience. They are able to fill out the work certification. And business partner is one of the categories. So if they are a business partner and that's somebody that they know that you have journeyman level experience, you can have them fill out your work experience certificate.
Yeah, or it may have been a case where they were the client that they were working. Okay, next question is from Oscar for the qualifier education question 17. Does a BS in engineering help with attaining the Class A, which is the general engineering license? If so, whom do the transcript be addressed to?
You're going to want to send sealed transcripts in with your application. So when you mail in your application, go ahead and include your transcript there.
So as far as getting the transcripts, Oscar, you should have them sent to you. They'll send that to you at your home or business address, whatever you decide to use. Take that and then include it in the packet that you send in to us. Okay, next question from Gabe again about the test centers. Keep your fingers crossed for us for June 15th. Jennifer, can someone with no work experience in the field, journeyman or employee, test their way to a Class C license?
No, unfortunately, our requirement is that you have 4 years of experience within the last 10 years.
Okay, Oz's question. I have studied all the study guides and more and have written the trade exams 3 times and failed. Each time there's different questions from the study guides. Why is this, and what advice would you have for me?
Yes, we have thousands of questions within our question banks for each exam. So it may be that you take your exam today, you come back in 3 weeks, and not one of the questions that you had today will be on your exam in 3 weeks. We are constantly changing our questions. We are testing to make sure that you have knowledge and that you know the trade, and so we are very thorough. But the only information that we can provide is what's in our study guide. We have heard that some applicants find that the schools are helpful. Others say that they're not very helpful because none of the questions that they provided to them were on our exam as well. So the only information that we have is what's on our study guide.
Okay, next question. This one I'm not quite understanding, but I'll read it the way it is. If I change my employer, is the license still valid? I'm not sure if they mean if you're working for a company and then you change employer, the license will not transfer. The licenses, we license entities. That's important to remember too. A lot of people who are contractors are sole ownerships or individuals. If you're, John Smith, you can get a John Smith Construction. But you're considered an entity. That's why we've talked about how you have to have a qualifier for the license. So we don't license individuals. We just license entities. So if you work for a licensed contractor and you were changing and working for a different contractor, they would have a different license. I hope that is what you're asking. Marcus, can you explain what type of bachelor's degree may help qualify for the B license?
Again, that's something that you'll want to submit your transcripts with your license. With your application, and then the technician will let you know how much experience credit they're going to give you for your degree.
Yeah, you may look at things like construction management. There's some things that obviously are going to have some connections to the kinds of things you would need in construction. What I can also say about the test as well is we test for minimum competency. You don't have to get an A to get your license. You just have to, I don't know if that would relate to a C or however it is. You just have to meet the minimum competency and pass the minimum grade in order to get your license. So as we do tests, we're just trying to test to make sure you got the knowledge to be a good contractor and that you've got the minimum background in order to be successful. Okay, next question from Ron. Are there any books you know off the top of your head we can buy to study for the test? Only one we can recommend is our own Contractors Board, the License Law and Reference Guide. If you download the presentation, I think the second or third slide, we have the link where you can actually download it for free if you don't mind the PDF on our website. Sean asks, on my work experience form, the certifier wrote the correct dates that I worked in the first section, then did not put the correct time in years and months. Can I have him modify that?
Yes, make a copy of it, cross off the mistake, have him put the correct years and months, and then have him initial it, and then you can send it in.
Okay, Troy's question. I have over 8 years experience in epoxy coatings, but I have not done work in this in the past 10 years. Can I still apply for the Class C license?
We're looking for 4 years within the last 10 years.
Our choice of the answer would be no. Well, having a AA, Associates in Arts degree in Landscape Architecture, and a BS in Business Administration count towards the experience, even though I've been working as a project manager for a separate field I'm applying for, but I have overseen work from a subcontractor. It's from Dolly, a very specific list there. So can you know, a lot of questions we're getting about how degrees. Yes. So can you kind of go over just a good general knowledge about how things need to apply and how the most credit you can get based on education?
Right. Okay. So the most credit you can get on education is going to be 3 years. 3 years towards your 4 years. And so we encourage you to submit any certificates or degrees that you have along with your transcripts and send that in with your application. Once we receive that, we can look at them, know exactly what classes, what courses were included. Then we can tell you how much credit you're going to receive exactly. We can't do that ahead of time, unfortunately. It's going to be once we receive it, we can let you know how, but the maximum would be 3 years.
Okay, Jordan, we asked this one a little earlier about back taxes from the IRS. As best as we know, that's not going to keep you from getting your license, but you should pay your taxes, of course. Salvador asks, how long does a qualifier need to stay on the license? How can they be removed if needed?
So you'll want to let us know, and that happens. Qualifiers move, leave. They leave companies. That's okay. You have up to 90 days to replace the qualifier. So you would let us know who your new qualifier is going to be. If that person would be required to have demonstrated the experience and also take the examination.
And one thing I wanted to throw out at this point, we really didn't cover it in the presentation, but there are companies, if you've got some concerns about getting your experience, we just want to alert you that there are companies out there that may try to rent you a qualifier or to get somebody that you will have to pay in order to qualify your license. The law, as we talked about earlier, they do need to have control and be able to, they have responsibility for how your business operates. So we'd encourage you to be very careful before you went to any business that tried to pair you up with a qualifier, because many times those people are either retired, they're in different parts of the state, and they really aren't going to have active involvement in the license, and that could take you down the wrong road if you start having complaints and having problems. We tend to find we get a lot more complaints with companies that have rented qualifiers. So just be careful if you're going that way. Michael asks, I'm an out-of-state licensed contractor for 6+ years. I worked for myself as LLC as an employer and employee with W-2. I did the work myself as a journeyman and supervised subs as a foreman essentially. Can clients certify the work experience since I am the employer?
Anyone who has direct knowledge that you have journeyman level experience, 4 years within the last 10, can fill out your work certificate.
Okay, so Tara asked again about the BA experience, how much of that experience, and it's up to 3 years, so you will still need to have at least 1 year of experience. Joe, what if I want to get a C10? I am an owner builder. My full experience includes many of the trades, including the electrical. Do I need to have 4 years of only electrical work?
You need to demonstrate that you have at least 4 years within the last 10 years. So let's say the last 10 years you've been working in many multiple fields. As long as 48 months of it would be towards the C10, then you would be able to qualify for the C10 license, the electrical license.
Okay. Eli, he or she, I'm sorry, has a law degree. Does that exempt or give credit towards the law exam?
Unfortunately, no. Everybody needs to take, whoever the qualifier is will be taking the examination.
It sounds like you got a good head start. Tim asks, I've been working as a Class A lead man for the last 10 years for a construction company. I'm wondering if that qualifies as a journeyman position. Our company does not use the term journeyman. Is leadman recognized by CSLB?
So we did go over the description for a journeyman in our presentation. CSLB considers journeyman somebody who is able to complete the project from beginning to end with no supervision. So if that is what the lead man does, if you're able to complete a project from beginning to end with little to no supervision, then that would qualify you as a journeyman.
Okay, Vanessa, my experience comes from my current employer, so this means my certifier would be my current employer. Yes, that would be correct. Irene, about the translator, are you or were you talking about an electronic device? No, we're actually talking about a human that would come in and be able to do the translation for you. The important thing is they need to be approved in advance. So if you do want to use a translator, be sure to get that information and form filled out to us prior to the exam. Don't just show up with somebody to read it to you. Jonathan asks, can you go over lab experience, such as working two HVAC technician jobs?
Can you overlap experience? I'm sorry. Okay.
Overlap.
So can you overlap? Can you overlap experience? We're looking for 48 different months. Let's say you worked for the last 2 years, you worked for 2 different HVAC companies. Unfortunately, you're only going to get 24 months worth of credit. We're looking for 48 different months worth in the last 10 years. So no, they can't overlap.
And Krishna asks about out-of-country experience requirements for the C10 electrical.
Yes, so we do give experience credit for out-of-country experience. It would be your obligation to be able to prove the experience that you acquired out of the country. Somebody would need to fill out the work certification and be very detailed on the projects or the work that you performed, and you could submit that with your application for consideration.
Arlene asks, we would like to do both electrical and plumbing. Do I need both the C10 and C33? That would be yes, and you can only get one at a time. So get the license, get whichever you think is going to be the one you're going to be doing first, and then add on the second one. And it goes on to Joe. It almost seems like it comes back as a follow-up. It says, and a C16 license for fire protection. Can I have both licenses? I don't know what the first part of his question was. C16 for fire protection. Again, if that's, as Anna said, if that's the job you're going to be doing most of, I don't know if you're asking about maybe a B and a C16. It all depends on how you plan to work. If your work is a lot of coming in on just doing the fire protection, the sprinklers, installations, that kind of thing, then C16 would be appropriate. If you are building new homes and it's required to have the sprinkler systems as part of the new construction, then you're, correct me if I'm wrong here, Anna, I don't like to stray into classifications questions, but you'll be okay with the new construction.
Correct.
Thank you.
What you can apply for different classifications. You just have to prove that you have the experience. And we're looking for 4 years within the last 10. So you'll start with one, and let's say you think that you're going to be getting a lot of C16 type of projects, fire protection projects. You can add that classification as soon as you get your license number. We would have the same process. A little simpler application. We have an additional classification application that you would fill out. The fee for that is $150, but you do have to prove the work experience. All of those classifications would be on one license. So at the time of renewal, you wouldn't have to pay per classification. It would be one renewal fee for your entire license, which includes all of your classifications.
And a point too that might help everybody else is don't get a B if you're going to be doing a lot of just those specialty jobs. In this case, the question has to do with C16. If they're just C16 jobs, just fire protection by itself, or if you get a B, don't just go out and just do electrical jobs that are just electrical. The purpose of the B is to have two unrelated trades in addition to framing. So if you're a general contractor, you're going to be doing multiple things on a job. If you're going to only be doing individual specialties, you really should go for the C specialty license, or get your B, then add on the specialty licenses. You can have as many of those as you like. Okay, application instructions, do not leave any blanks. What do we do with the fields in section 4? I think we had that as well as personnel, just put NA in those lines. Okay, section 5, question 15 states we must only be filled out by the qualified individual RME, but I am a sole owner, no employees. Yeah, so we've answered that before too. Yeah, good. You know what I'm seeing? Looks like some of these are just repeating. So give me 1 second as I kind of scroll through them. Okay, they have one question from Justin about the industrial engineering. Does it matter that it has nothing to do with construction? Depends on, Justin, are you applying, for the A, with the engineering? If the license is in engineering, it may very well, but if it doesn't, it would be tough to have it qualify for the license if it's not there to replace experience that you would be getting if you were actually doing the work. Michael, since I did a lot of the work myself as an LLC and contract, as a licensed contractor, outside of taxes and deposits for the general B, who can certify my work experience?
So if you look at the work experience certificate, there are different categories of the people who can certify your license. Any one of those categories can certify. It can be a licensed contractor. It could be a former employee. It can be a fellow employee. It can be a somebody from the union. Just look at the different classifications, and that person can certify your work experience.
I get in the feeling you folks you don't want us to leave. The questions keep coming in. We'll keep powering through, guys, but we're almost an hour and a half in here, and I'm guessing we probably have still 50 or 60 questions to go. So at some point, if they get too repetitive, we may have to kind of stop, but we'll do our best to keep holding out here. Jeremy asks if you have plenty of trade-specific experience working for a large company such as a resort. Would your supervisors there be able to certify you even though they are not licensed general contractors?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, then he asked about testing centers again, hopefully June 15th. What is the meaning 4 years experience that we have to work 4 years, 8 hours every day? Yes, if to be able to say you've got 1 year of experience, you need to have 1 year of experience full-time working on that. You can't do a job here and there over a span of 4 years. You actually need to have 4 years full-time doing that work. Cesar, if I worked in an entertainment company as a carpenter, would the supervisor be able to certify, and would that count as experience?
Cesar, I would encourage you to read our classification booklet, look for the classification that you're looking to apply for and see if those are duties that you have performed. That's where you will find what CSLB considers critical duties. And as long as you have experience that you can verify that you have performed those duties at a journeyman level, I would encourage you to have somebody certify that you have that experience.
Okay, Crystal asks about, can a customer fill out a certification of experience?
As long as that person knows that you has hands-on knowledge that you have 4 years of journeyman level experience, they can fill out the work experience certificate, and yeah, they would need to fill out part 2 and be very thorough on what duties you performed.
Okay, Juan asks, can one licensee be used to qualify for multiple companies? I would assume, if you're asking if there's 2 or 3 people, I'm not sure if you're saying can they do it for multiple people applying for a license. If they're just certifying your experience, it would only be applied to the license you're applying for. I don't know if I'm reading that question wrong, but that's my guess on that. Tracy, I have hundreds of clients, individual jobs. I want to find out if I need to fill out a separate sheet for each job or just the ones where the work fits into a specific trade category. I believe it was the interior designer questions from earlier.
Oh, okay. she would need to prove 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. 4 years of experience is what we're looking for. We're looking for 48 months, and that 48 months has to be acquired within the last 10 years. Somebody had a question about why we keep referring to 4 years or 10 years. So it's 48 months worth of experience within the last 10 years. So if you have 4 years of experience, but it was 20 years ago, unfortunately, you would not be able to use that experience. However, yes, you anything within the last 10 years can be considered.
Okay, Carlos, this one's a follow closely, and it goes into a little depth here. I went to electrical trade school for 12 months, graduated, passed my journeyman exam. My dad wants to apply for a General B license. What would be the next step if we apply for a partnership and want to add a C10 classification to our license?
Okay, so the partnership, you and your dad are going to be on the partnership license, I'm understanding.
And it looks like dad might be the qualifier for the B.
For the B. Okay, so dad can be the qualifier for the B. As soon as that license is issued, you can submit an additional classification application to add a classification to your license, and that can be in the C10. Is that correct, C10?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, then you can add the C10 classification. As long as one of you has the experience, 4 years within the last 10 years, that person would be the qualifier for that classification. Yes, you can add that to your existing license.
Great. Anthony asks if I want to specialize in artificial turf installation, do I need to hold a C27, which is a landscaping license, or is the D12, which is the specialty category, sufficient?
I would encourage you to read both descriptions. If what you read under the D12 lists exactly the work that you're going to be doing, then you can apply for the limited specialty. But if you think that you might be doing some of the descriptions that are in the C27 description, then I would encourage you to go for the C27. We do not encourage people to work their way around the C27 exam by applying for the limited specialty.
Yeah, but if there's a chance, if that is what you're only doing, there is a chance it may be the D12. Also, if you don't know where to find that on our website, the best thing to do is just go to the homepage and in the search box, just put classifications and search that way. The list, we have a booklet, and we also have a clickable list where you can click on it and it shows you the definitions for the classifications. Okay, Salvador, does a qualifier need to take the exams, or can they be taken by the owner builder and the qualifier only provide verifiable experience on the application? No, the qualifier is the one that needs to take the tests.
Correct. Whoever has the experience is the person who takes the exam.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, is it necessary to request a transcript from my law school, or is proof of my admission into the California State Bar sufficient proof of education? Annie asks.
A transcript would be required. We would need to see the transcript.
Okay, Abdul, does the company used in qualifier experience, would they be contacted? If so, what types of questions would you be asking them?
We may contact the certifier who certified your work experience. We would be contacting them. Perhaps it's not in every single case, but if we were to reach out to them, we would be verifying the information that they provided.
Okay, David asks about translators. To get a translator on the day of the exam, do I need to fill out a form, or will CSLB have the staff available? No, you absolutely want to get that done in advance. Go to the website, put in translator in the search thing. You'll be able to get to that. You absolutely 100% want that taken care of before. You can't just show up with a person and fill out a form on the day of your exam. Next question, Raheem, I work in the hotel industry, 5 years as a journeyman, 3 years as a lead maintenance engineer. Is that enough to qualify for a B general contractor license?
Again, we're looking for 4 years of journeyman level experience. So if you have the 4 years journeyman level experience that we can verify, and that experience was within the last 10 years, then you would definitely be able to apply for a license. Just to go back with the translator, just to make it clear, CSLB does not provide the translator. You have to provide your own translator. So CSLB would not be providing the translator.
Thank you. That's a good point. Thank you for emphasizing that. Next question from Krishna, difference between getting a second license if I'm already licensed in a different category. And I kind of talked about that just a couple of minutes ago. Get the first license, and it's a fairly more streamlined process to add a classification. Yes, you still have to take the test. You only have to take the law test once. You won't have to take the law test again, but you would just need to take the trade exam to get that second classification added to your license. Jason asked about the 10-year limit. If your experience is earlier than 2010, we can't consider it. Tracy, I have prior work experience and I own my property where I've done multiple projects. Should I add both to the application, or is the certified experience sufficient? I would just say whatever you're going to need to get to that 4 years out of the last 10, and go with the best, most certifiable experience. Fernando, cost of exam. You know off the top of your head, and if not, I can look it up real quick.
So the cost of the examination will be on the application itself. You will send in an application fee with your application when you mail it in. And so with that, one exam is included. After that, every time that you're going to take your exam, you're going to want to, let's say you don't pass on the first time, you want to reschedule it, it's a $60 rescheduling fee. But one exam is included with the price of the application, with the application processing fee.
Yeah, the cost, I just pulled it up. It's $330 for the single application. And then after you pass the exam, that's when you would actually pay your initial license fee, which is $200, and that's good for 2 years. Okay, next. I have a partnership based in Ohio. Is my California-based RME the only person who needs to take the exam and fingerprinting?
Everyone who is listed on the license will have to submit a set of fingerprints. If you have an RME, and that is a person who will take the exam.
Okay, next from Oscar. If the qualifier decides to work for a sole owner, would the qualifier submit the company as the business name in the application, or what should the qualifier enter? Trying to understand that.
For sole owner, the sole owner would be the qualifier. So I'm not sure what you're asking exactly.
Okay, Oscar, if you can make it a little clearer, type up a new question and we'll eventually get to it at the bottom of the list here. Next one from Seth. I worked at the same company 2 separate times. Do I need to get 2 separate work experience certifications filled out?
If one person can certify that you have 4 years of experience, no, we can use one form.
Okay, Sarah, you had mentioned that if an interior designer is supervising subs, the interior designer would need a contractor's license. As an architect, my question is similar. Would I need to be licensed if the subs are licensed and I'm acting as CM? I don't know if that's construction management / owner's rep.
A project manager has to have a contractor's license. So yes, a license would still be required. If you're going to be the one employing subs and you're going to be in charge of the project, then yes, you would have to have a contractor's license.
It looks like Juan cleared up an earlier question. He says, can one license be used to qualify multiple companies? So can one person, I think what he's getting at is can one person be on multiple licenses?
Yes, one person can be on multiple licenses.
Okay, Abdul, if I apply as a sole owner, I wouldn't need to register with the state before the exam and while doing the application. If you mean as far as the Secretary of State's office, that would be correct. Sole ownership are not registered with the Secretary of State's. If you're a corporation, LLC, you would be registered. Right. Sole ownerships, you are not registered with Secretary of State. So if that's the direction you're going, fill out the application and get it in. Peter, I moved to California from England and have 3 years work experience here. While in the UK, I have 16 years construction experience in every trade and I was self-employed. While having 16 years in the UK qualify for the work experience, I'll jump ahead of Anna here and I'll say if it's in the last 10 years, then and you've got some way to be able to certify that, then I would say yes, it will be considered. As always, Anna, correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct. That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, some things just about the webinar being viewable. Yeah, with the archive, this thing is going to be archived. It's look on it. We'll mention it at the end, but on our YouTube channel, it is on our Facebook. We're on both of those right now as well. Can I have your email address? No, you cannot have my email address. I'm kidding. Depends on what you need. We'll cover it at the end of the questions here. If it's a licensing question, there's licensing at cslb.ca.gov. If you have an enforcement question, it's enforcement at cslb.ca.gov. If you have something you want to send to like us in public affairs or anything else, there's one that's called social at cslb.ca.gov. If there's not really a category, then try info at cslb.ca.gov. A whole bunch of ways. If you're not sure, go to our homepage, click on the contact thing, and all those email addresses will be in the contact. Also, we have a COVID-19 page where we've got all that information as well. Okay, Troy, if I have already submitted my prints to LiveScan from a previous real estate license, do I need to resubmit them again?
Yes, you do. We will send you the form. Yes, you would have to resubmit them.
Okay, Baron's question is, can I get a license as an individual without a company? Yes and no. You can get it just as one person. We consider, as I mentioned earlier, we consider all the licensees entities. So as the entity, you would list yourself as a sole ownership. So that would need a qualifier. That's what enables you to, if you chose to use a responsible managing employee as your qualifier. So if you're just an individual, you can get a license. Technically, we consider you a company, even though you can just be an individual. So that's fine. Does the law degree automatically satisfy 2 years of experience?
Not automatically. You'll want to submit your transcript, and then we will let you know how much experience you'll be receiving.
Okay, so how long after taking the exams does the license need to be issued? Well, after that, after you take the exam, there's, as we mentioned in the presentation, there's a little more stuff you need to do about getting your surety bond in place and any of the insurances. Those can all be submitted and instantaneously updated. So once you've got all the other paperwork and everything in place, the process goes very quickly for us to get the information to, I think, probably within a week or two. And as far as expiration, it is 2 years. So today's the 29th of May. If you got your application issued today, it would expire the last day of the month 2 years from now. So May 31st of 2022 would be it. If you get your license next Monday on the 1st of June, it would expire June 30th of 2022. Would a DUI in the past 14 years ago, which was expunged, did not deny an application? I'll say here is not automatically. We're much more concerned, Anna, you can speak to this too. We're much more concerned with different kinds of criminal convictions, things that have to do with either financial fraud, serious, violent crimes, those kinds of things. Anna, do you want to add anything else? Usually DUIs are not going to keep you from getting a license.
Right, especially if it's 14 years ago. What question number 11 on the application asks, have you ever been convicted? Have you ever been convicted of a misdemeanor or a felony? So you want to put yes, and you'll want to fill out a disclosure form. However, one DUI 14 years ago may not. It wouldn't preclude you from getting a license.
Okay. Next question, Anthony. I worked for a general contractor and we did C27 work too. Can I use that experience as a qualifier for a C27?
If you are able to prove the C27 that you had 4 years of experience at a full-time level. So let's say maybe you'd have to determine how much of the work that you provided for that general contractor. Let's say you worked 8 years for the general contractor and 50% of the time it was C27 work. You could use that towards the 48 months worth of credit.
Next question from Melissa is, what kind of qualifications would you need to be able to get an exam waiver?
Very limited. It's if you have been on a separate license and you're applying for the same classification and you can prove that license is in good standing, which means you've taken the exam and you've maintained the license in good standing, then you would be able to apply for a waiver. It's very limited. You can look at our application. The first 9 pages of our application are instructions, and it gives very specific information about who qualifies for an exam waiver.
Another way, too, is we do have reciprocity agreements. So if you happen to be a licensed contractor in either Nevada, Arizona, Utah, or Louisiana, you may be able to get the waiver for the trade exam. You would still need to take the California business law exam, but let's say you're a licensed landscaper in Nevada and you want to come get your California's license, there is a chance you could get the waiver from the trade exam. But there's, the rules, it's all spelled out on the website. You have to be able to have a license for a certain number of years and things, but that might be another way for you to be able to get an exam waived. Lisa, any recommendations on ways to gain experience for a general contractor's license or sources to find that information? Well, the biggest thing I would say is the best way to get experience is to be actually doing the work. If you're employed by somebody else, documenting it. If you feel you're close but not quite the 4 years, you may want to consider investing months or a year working for a general contractor, getting that kind of experience. If nothing else, it's really going to benefit you once you actually hang up your own shingle and do your own work. Jordan, will the demonstration be available to watch again? Yes, it will be archived on our YouTube channel. You can either go onto YouTube, search for Contractors Board, or come to our homepage, then scroll up towards the top of the page. You see a link to our different social media channels. You can watch and listen to Anna and I over and over and over. If you wish to begin as handyman work, do you require any license to perform electrical or minor plumbing work if it still falls under the $500 limit? Okay, so the $500 limit is what's called the handyman exemption. So if they take on you're taking on a job that's less than 500, you can do that if it's electrical or plumbing, but that the price includes your labor and materials. So don't think that I can just okay, it's going to cost you $500 to do this, but you have to go out and buy your own materials. The law takes everything into account, and also you can't take that and break it into a $499 plumbing job and a $499 electrical job. If you get caught, the law is not going to be on your side. Okay, Vanessa, would I have to get a B license to have a roofing company? No, if you want to be a roofing company, you should get the C39 roofing specialty classification. Leandro, I've been self-employed for 8 years doing low voltage surveillance camera, TV, audio, and network installation. At the same time, helping friends doing tile and plumbing installations. For the Class B license, who needs to give a reference, or can I use my existing business when I am the owner? I know we kind of keep touching on this, is you've got to be able to, it sounds like you've done a lot over the 8 years, but you need to say how much of that is the low voltage camera work, how much of that 8 years is that. If you've got at least 4 years of that, it's going to help you if you want to get that low voltage license. It may not help you get your B license because you need to have framing and carpentry experience. And so none of the things you're referring to has to do with that. So you may be a little bit challenged because the B is the toughest license to get because it expects you to have knowledge in a lot of different trades. Anything to add, Anna?
Right. You have to be able to provide that experience. And as the law reads now, framing would be required. And so if that's not something that you have experience in, then you may need to look at the specialty classification.
Okay. How about voluntary non-paid experience? Oscar asks about if that can be used to count towards your experience.
As long as you have somebody who's willing to verify that work experience and it was at a journeyman level experience, we would be able to consider it. Okay,
next question from Jonathan. Do we email the applications to the P.O. box? What is the best address? I'm just pulling up the I'm pulling up the application. That is the P.O. box we have at the top, the mailing address, P.O. Box 26,000 in Sacramento. Okay, Dolly, with having an established specialty license, for example, landscaping license, can you subcontract someone else with a license for some unrelated, like sheet metal, to gain experience that way? Dolly, it sounds like if you're subcontracting, you're saying you're using your landscaping license to hire yourself out to do sheet metal work, which would require a different kind of license. So if you're asking, you go do work outside of your license in order to gain experience in that, I would just say you can't if you're working under that license. There would be a concern if you've got a landscape license and you're doing work that doesn't fall under landscaping and you're getting paid to be doing that work, that you'd be working outside of your classification, which could lead you into some administrative problems. If you're saying you just want to be doing experience, you want to be an employee for somebody else while you got your landscape license, yes, but then I think that would get to what we've been talking about is if you're not doing it full time, it's going to take a lot longer to build up that experience. I hope that answers it. Another question about qualifiers staying on a license. They can move off fairly quickly and at will when you make that decision. Salvador, does the qualifier need to take the examination or it can be taken by another? Okay, we dealt with that one as well. No, the qualifier needs to take the exams. Okay, Joe asks, I'm starting a business that will hire a C10, which is electrical contractor, to perform all the work. Some projects will require a C46 as well, but these appear to be related trades. So does my company need an A or B license to oversee that C10 work? Anna,
If you are a B general contractor, you can hire subcontractors, and if you have C10, which is electrical, if you have electrical work, or if you have solar work, which is a C46, then you, as a B contractor, you could oversee that project. But the B classification is the correct classification. You would oversee the specialty subcontractor. Always, just as a reminder, when you are the general, I'm sorry, Rick, as a general contractor, you are responsible for the work of your subcontractors. You want to make sure that they are licensed in the proper classification, and also that if they're going to be bringing employees, that they have a workers' comp policy.
And also what he's saying here, I just wanted to address, he says he's a business that will hire a C10 to perform the work, and some projects will require a C46 as well. I would just say, not to get too much into the weeds, but a C10 should be qualified to do pretty much anything a C46 can do, because solar does fall under the electrical license. So you may or may not need to use the C46. That's obviously up to you. Does an A license cover trades as a B license? No, they're separate. The A license has the engineering portion of it. So many times that's where you're going to be the freeway builders, the skyscrapers, the bridges, the dams. It has some kind of an engineering component to it, whereas the B is going to be general construction. I have my business registered and been doing taxes every year. Do they help? For the last 8 years, Leandro, I don't know if you mean that help as far as your experience. I think I'd have to say it may help, but on its own, I don't think it will, because we don't know if you're actually doing the work. Just because you have a business registered doesn't mean that you're able to work. So that would be kind of hard to use that. Okay, Neil asks, what info can you give to help pass the C51 test? Well, we have study guides on there. So go to our website. In the info box, type in study or study material, study exams.
Study guide.
I'm sorry?
Study guide.
Study guide, thank you. We've been here a while now. Study guides, and go down to C51s. You'd be able to find that information there. Do you send the official who do you send the official transcripts to? Again, get those sent to you, include it with your packet. Don't have them send it directly to CSLB. We may have difficulty connecting it to your application. So you hold on to it to get it to us yourself with your packet. Neil, can you ask a question that's not in the paperwork and answer a question not in the book we all can and should have read? And your test date's June 11th. Neil, stand by. If you haven't been contacted us, you probably are going to get contacted to reschedule if you've got a June 11th date. I'm sorry, I don't understand the first part of it about a question not at the paperwork. Obviously, the study guides that we have, it gives you examples and the topics covered. It doesn't give you, it has sample questions, but not all of the specific questions. How can a sole ownership handyman accumulate 4 years of experience if they're not licensed to perform the work required? Wake up, Anna, this is for you.
So if they are trying to qualify for a B license, it depends what license you're trying to qualify. If they're trying to qualify for the B license, they do have to have the framing aspect to it. It does require that you have experience in framing. So if you're working as a handyman and you see that maybe you have the experience to qualify for one of our specialty classifications, and you have somebody who is able to verify that experience, that you are able to perform that job at a journeyman level, have 48 months within the last 10 years, then that person would be able to qualify for a license. We do give experience for work. We understand that people are out there working without a license. If you are able to verify that somebody is willing to fill out your work experience, we can consider that as well. We understand we're not going to take an action against you for working without a license, but if you have, somebody who's willing to verify that experience and say, yes, this person does have journeyman level experience, I've seen their work. I know that they have been working in this field for 4 years within the last 10, then they should fill out your certification.
Okay, we're going to take one more, and if We have a handful of questions that still haven't been answered. If you do want to ask it again, we'll show you that licensing at cslb.ca.gov. We've been going almost 2 hours here, and we actually so we have another WebEx we have to do in a few minutes. So we're going to answer just one more from Juan, and if your question didn't get answered, please send us an email to our licensing staff, and we'll do our best to help you out here. Okay, Juan's question is: I was a construction supervisor for 5+ years with a railway, managing projects throughout the country. I'm sure I can get my former director to certify my experience. However, what if the railway does not want to release the building permits?
So if you have somebody who is willing to certify your work experience, we wouldn't need the building permits. The building permits were only required if you were trying to gain experience credit on your own project, owner builder project. But if you have somebody who you work for this company, they're willing to certify your work experience, you wouldn't need the building permit.
All right, folks. We're going to wrap it up here again. Send us if you still have questions that you need answered. We'll do our best to help you out. But thank you for all the questions. Looking at the screen, we had 186 questions, so that was a lot. I hope we were able to answer most, if not everything you were looking for. At some point, if you do need to reschedule the exam, we also have that email address there, the exams@cslb.ca.gov. Hopefully that won't be the case once you get on the calendar. Well, that does conclude today's workshop. As we mentioned, an archive version will be placed on CSLB's YouTube channel. We welcome your comments on or topics for future webcasts. Just drop us an email, and there you see it's social@cslb.ca.gov. We have special thanks to everybody from CSLB who helped out with this. And our Get Licensed to Build workshop is a copyrighted production of the Contractor State License Board. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.